Thank you, thank you. You got shoes every year, whether you needed them or not? Well, that's the affluent area of Western Kentucky. I really want to cover a number of things this morning, but as always, I'm very conscious of your time. So let me begin, move through just a few slides, talking about some things that are perhaps in front of us that I think are likely to have enormous import to the university in the years ahead. I'm especially pleased that Brad has given me the clicker. I never get this at home. I have to fight for it with Luke. And to be real honest with you, I'm just delighted to watch anything other than ESPN. So let's begin, if we might. I'm really going to focus my comments this morning on four areas. First, I want to, of course, at the beautiful scene in front of, late afternoon in front of the fountain, you'll see our two distinctions, national distinctions, the best colleges, and then most recently, of course, the recognition from the Chronicle of Higher Education of great colleges to work for. Let me just say this about the great colleges. I think most of us are very, very proud of this distinction. I'll address that just a little later in the remarks, but I do want you to know that only 97 institutions were recognized nationally for this, and only 42 across the country made the honor roll distinction. And frankly, I think that this one fits this university like a glove. But we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Again, a nice accolade for Francis Marion. Let's, if I might, go through these areas. I want to talk briefly about resources. I want to talk about academic and programmatic initiatives. I want to spend a little time talking about facilities, and I'll conclude by talking about some of the priorities that I think we are looking at assuming, or at least tackling, over the next few years. Let's begin with the. Oh, by the way, Brad's sitting over there, prepared to default me at any point that I screw up, as well as should. Just like the provost does every single day. Let's begin by talking a little bit of resources, and if I might, let's talk about the new appropriations this year. I'm very, very pleased to report back to you that we got everything we went after. We actually got a little more, and in the result, as a result of that, we were the one institution in South Carolina that received the greatest overall appropriation among all of the 10 colleges and universities, including our 3 research partners. So I was very, very pleased that we were able to at least collect those dollars that we went for. We got the $400,000 recurring for our Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering. All of the approvals have been acquired for that degree, except there's one last pro forma vote that has to occur from the CHE on October 3rd. I think that we anticipate no difficulties with that whatsoever. And we're especially pleased to see Lorna join us to begin work on that program. And my compliments to the colleagues across this faculty that worked so hard to put together our first truly interdisciplinary degree. I think it's very, very exciting. I think it portends wonderful things for us ahead. We did get the $5 million on the health sciences facility. We got the $3.25 million from lottery funds, $1.75 million from the Capital Reserve Fund. The governor vetoed the $3.25 from the lottery money. The House overrode her veto 96-16, and the Senate overrode her veto 42-3. It was a squeaker every day. The governor has been very gracious about that. The governor has indicated that her concern had nothing to do with the nature of that building or these programs. It had to do with the fact that the source of money was drawn from lottery proceeds. So I feel terrific that obviously there's no lingering concerns with the administration with regard to our moving ahead with the program. We did receive some $413,000 technology support. As always, if you recall, this is appropriated to all the universities collectively, to the comprehensive universities, and it's distributed by formula. And of course, we'll get just a little more than $400,000 on that. There was no state pay increase this year, unfortunately. The Senate tried to put through a 1% pay increase. The House resisted that initiative, but the university was able to put 2.5% on the table to at least keep pace with inflationary increases. And I know the board wanted to send a strong message about how much they valued each of you and what you do on this campus. We also picked up almost $500,000 deferred maintenance money, which was just sitting around on a table. And we'll apply that towards sidewalk repairs. We will replace a few elevators across campus. And then we'll also put in a backup generator for the academic computing center with that. All three priorities that are critically important on campus. So let's talk about our budget coming out of this year. Our total budget's now just a little over $71 million. You'll note that our state appropriations comprise about 17% of the budget, tuition and fees 53% of the budget, and that other revenue source, essentially monies that we put into the budget from institutional grants, private research, scholarship funding, and essentially private fundraising that's injected directly into our operating budget, is growing every year to now virtually a third of the budget. My friends, those trends aren't going to change in the state, and I think we can wish forever, but we're not going to see appreciable difference relative to the allocation of money from the legislature related to colleges and universities. We've had this conversation before. We've been successful the past few years because we've put, I think, creative programs on the table, and we've been able to get appropriations for those programs. The General Assembly will never restore to us the $10 or $11 million we lost between 2007 and 2011 through a series of mid-year budget cuts. But we'll do what we can with what we've got. So let's talk about where we are with regard to our reserves. I'm very, very proud about this, and it underscores the health and vibrancy of the institution. Currently, our capital maintenance reserve, now these are public dollars that we essentially use principally for reserve and capital project commitments. They're just a little more than $6 million. Our development foundation has, and we used to call it our real estate foundation, but we ventured towards putting some of that money into programmatic interests as well as facilities. So now it's the development foundation rather than the real estate foundation. That has almost $6 million. And you'll note that our education endowment now is about $25.7 million. We've about quadrupled that endowment in the last 15 years. Let me tell you how this actually flows. We're raising now about $5 million a year. 60% of that money that we raise privately is flow-through funding. It either goes to facilities or programs or scholarships. Roughly 35% of that each year accrues to the endowment. So, of course, the key for us, assuming that interest ever rises to reasonable levels, is to build the corpus in that endowment as high as we can, in the hopes that one day that'll satisfy all of our scholarship and endowed chair obligations, and we won't essentially be drawing from other private sources to do that. And I'll tell you, I think that that's not too far away. So that's where we stand financially. Let's talk about the academic and programmatic initiatives. Good. Master of Science in Nursing, Nurse Practitioner program started this past January. We received last year, if you recall, $500,000 appropriation. I'm sorry, 2012, 2013, this past year, $500,000 appropriation. We've received roughly about $750,000 in private gifts for that program, and so we're sailing along very, very nicely. Now, please note, when I talk about the nurse practitioner program, inclusive in that's the nurse educator program. Essentially, much of that curriculum is shared. We started that at the same time. That's fully funded and functioning as well. In just a few short months, we'll begin our Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering. That was funded with that appropriation this past summer. We've worked with Virginia Tech in developing that curriculum, and Virginia Tech faculty will continue to work with us the next 3 to 4 years in developing the students and the industrial connections, business connections necessary for that program to thrive. To date, we've received contributions from Santee Cooper, Honda, and Duke Energy Foundation, totaling just a little more than $400,000, and we anticipate within the next 5 to 6 months, another 3 to 5 corporate gifts will come in. So again, those are not only programs, the nursing program and the industrial engineering, where we've been able to get financial support from the state, recurring commitments, but we've been able to solicit some very, very generous private gifts as well. We will move forward this fall with the support of the faculty and your concurrence in developing the basis for our Physician Assistant Studies Master's program. We anticipate that we can begin this program in the fall of 2016, and this year we'll request $500,000 recurring from the General Assembly to fund that program. The one thing that I would add there is that we've had discussions with Wake Forest University. They've agreed to be our senior mentor in developing that curriculum, and we're very, very excited about that. We believe that that program will be a wonderful complement to the family nurse practitioner program, and Ruth assures me that we can share some of the core curriculum in that program. Right, do I see her? Yeah, there it is. There's it. Yeah. Okay, so the other thing that I would like the faculty to consider is I would appreciate very much if you would take that feasibility study we did a couple of years ago on the Master of Science in Speech Pathology. Dust that feasibility study off, and essentially let's look at moving forward with the speech pathology program. I hear not only from clinicians across the region, but from the hospitals and the school districts, that's the degree that's desperately needed in the state of South Carolina right now. There's a severe shortage of speech pathologists. This is probably a wonderful time for us to move in that direction, and again, it's a superb complement to the nurse practitioner and to the nurse educator degree programs, and of course will be with the physician assistant. Let me flip, if I might, to the next page. Yes, Master of Public Administration. Rich and I had discussion, again, lengthy discussion with President Provost of Coastal Carolina University. They're very, very keen in a collaborative program with us on this, a joint program with us, but all four of us are convinced that this is just not quite the time. There likely would not be legislative funding for that program, and it's not clear yet that there's enough resources in local government or state government to provide much tuition assistance for their employees. So we're going to continue to delay that a while longer. Accreditation reviews. Let me just spend a couple of minutes on this. Congratulations to Fine Arts on NASAD, Chemistry on ACS, and NCAT. You know, I've been in this business 34 years. I have never seen an accreditation review team sit at a table and say, there are no discrepancies, everything's great. My compliments to education and to all the other faculty that participated with education in that NCAT review. It is absolutely unheard of to get that kind of nicely done. Now, unfortunately, SAC's midterm's coming up this year, So we'll gear in place relative to the midterm review, which is, as all of you may recall, those of you who were here 5 years ago, the midterm focus is most heavily on their QEP. So the focus will be very acute on our real program and what we've been able to achieve with that the last 5 years. And I'm very optimistic that we'll get through that process well. That program, the committee and Will have just done a marvelous job. I can't imagine that there would be any difficulties with that effort at all. Let me talk to you about the next one. Next year, we're about 90% of the way in solidifying an agreement with the USC School of Medicine. About 43rd and 4th year medical students will come to Florence to do their clinical work, their remaining 2 years of the medical school. We're going to work with the USC School of Medicine to try to ensure that only those students come who have a strong interest in becoming family practice physicians, especially family practice physicians who would practice in rural areas of the state. So we'll try to be self-selecting in that process. Now let me tell you what you need to hear. Not a dime of our money will go into that program. We've been able to work with the State Department of Health and Human Services. They will provide $1.8 million annually for 5 years to support those medical students. And for the first time ever in this state, they'll put Medicaid money on the table for supporting some of our own nurse practitioner students as well. Part of our deal is we'll work with you in accommodating the 3rd and 4th year medical students with our hospital partners, but we want you to push the envelope on graduate medical education funding to include nurse practitioners as a part of that funding umbrella as well. And you know, in 2 years, we'll make a pretty compelling case for physician assistants as well. So we've been successful in that so far. By the way, that means about $9 million coming to us, but much of that will be contractually passed through to USC for the medical students. And again, that will all come out of the federal Medicaid funding, the graduate medical education area. Another accolade to my friends in education, we've been trying for a long time to break into this sealed society of schools that have been able to host the teaching fellows. We were able to do that this year. In fact, we threatened to change the legislation. And when we did that, we were able to at least get enough concurrence and agreement that this portion of the state was added. And I don't say this arrogantly, but the expectation was that they would put out an RFP that 3 schools in this region of the state could apply, and they would likely accept 2 of the 3. They only accepted 1 of the 3. They accepted Francis Marion. So again, my compliments to our education faculty. Barry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean this to be School of Education Day. And, let me talk to you about the next one, and I feel very strongly about this, but this may take a little longer to do than we had originally assumed. We spoke last year to the FMU Faculty Staff African American Coalition about the possibility of beginning a summer academy on this campus for 8th graders. Look, it's all well and good for us to talk about working with the high schools to encourage the number of graduates who come to Francis Marion. But you know, the truth of the matter is when we focus on the 11th graders or 10th graders, it's much too late. So what we're going to do, we're going to find a way to do this. I keep looking at the provost because, as always, I expect him to put it together. But we need to find a way, I think, to begin a summer academy to bring those kids, the 8th graders, onto this campus, beginning with 1 week and maybe extending to 2 weeks. where we can introduce them to the world of ideas, of literature, mathematics, the sciences, the world of ideas that we'll find at the college level. And what we're going to do when we do that process is focus on those young men and women, those kids who are unlikely to go to college unless we can find a way to intervene with them. And we'll rely upon our coalition to help us identify and find those kids. I was hopeful we could begin that next summer. It may take one more summer to get the money and the program in place, and you'll see why in just a couple of minutes. Finally, let me talk to you about the last item on the list, Mount Pleasant. And this requires a little bit of explanation. Last year, we received a visit from the mayor and the city council of Mount Pleasant. And the visit went something like this. They explained that they were very frustrated in Mount Pleasant at not being able to, for residents of Mount Pleasant seeking to acquire collegiate degrees, to get collegiate degrees. Mount Pleasant, all of you know, although our new faculty might not, is one of the fastest growing jurisdictions, located right next to Charleston, although Mount Pleasant would point out that they're on the right side of the Cooper rather than the other side. And what Mount Pleasant has asked us to do, and they've asked us to consider putting some programs in Mount Pleasant to work with Trident Technical College and other lower division institutions throughout the Tri-County area at trying to matriculate more of their students into a collegiate education opportunity. The College of Charleston is enrollment constrained. The College of Charleston will not accept any more than 10,000 students total. College of Charleston takes roughly about 45% out-of-state students. And frankly, there are many jurisdictions in and around the Charleston area, broadly defined, that are very, very concerned about this. The president of Trident Tech tells me that she has 7,000 graduates a year that would love to attend baccalaureate institutions if there was that option, a public option available in the Charleston area. Now, I will tell you that the mayor and council of Mount Pleasant came here expecting to visit 3 institutions, and they go home and go through a choice process. I'm told that after they left here, the mayor canceled the other 2 visits and decided that the partner that he chose to pair with was Francis Marion University. But he did tell us this. He said, look, if you choose not to do this, that's fine. We'll go on to one of those other institutions because it's very important to us that we have this opportunity. Now, guys, this is a wonderful opportunity, but it's also fraught with peril. This is one of those things in which there's enormous good, and there's some difficulty appended to the process in terms of how we grow, how we develop, and the like. To that end, I've asked the provost and the chair of the faculty to look very, very carefully at this, bring me some suggestions after consulting with the Academic Affairs Committee of the faculty as to what program, first of all, is this something we want to do? Number 2, what programs, understanding that we would only offer a handful of programs there, at least initially, and what should be the constraining level relative to enrollment. Yes, that's an enrollment-rich environment. You know, we haven't been very, very acquainted with working in that type of environment for a long time. But I think it does provide some wonderful opportunities for us, and it provides opportunities for not only the opportunity to educate men and women in this state who otherwise don't have a public opportunity, a public vehicle for for a baccalaureate degree, but also allows us to continue to grow and support on-campus programs with a revenue stream that would come from those programs that we offer in Mount Pleasant. Let me go on, if I might, talk about programmatic support. Faculty research and development. Programmatic support. Faculty research and development. Currently, that fund has $330,000. We'll add another $30,000 and take it up to $360,000 for this next year. Our real program, formerly QEP, has $250,000 now. We will add an additional $25,000 in that program to take that up to $275,000 next year. We had promised SACs 5 years ago that we would try to have the balance of support for the real program at $250,000 when they return. We'll be just 10% higher than that when they come back, and I view that as a very, very positive thing. In addition to this, we'll continue the McNair grants this year. The provost says that the $3,000 stipends for sabbaticals is working very, very well. So this year we'll increase that to $4,000 per sabbatical recipient. And I tell you, we're going to do one other thing this year in recognition of how well our international programs and how well our international exchanges are going. We're going to provide a $10,000 fund to support $2,500 faculty collaboration grants with faculty of our sister institutions abroad. So faculty on this campus that develop collaborative efforts with our exchange institutions and those faculty will provide up to 4 $2,500 faculty collaboration grants. And of course, I'm going to regret this years into the future, but we'll give my friend Mark Blackwell control of that fund and the ability to award those grants. But Mark, there'll be an audit at the end of the year, okay? Facilities. Let me very, very briefly move through these. Office facilities is completed. Jay Kisper did a wonderful job on that. That's given our office services employees finally a decent building to work in, and we're very, very proud that's been done. We now have $15.5 million for the health sciences building. We, of course, $5 million from the state. We just got $3 million from the city of Florence and $7.5 million from the Bruce and Lee Foundation. We're in the process of selecting a site. There are about 47,000 people I have to satisfy on that site, everybody who gave us $1. But I'm hopeful that the Mayor Wakila and I will have the opportunity to make a press, to have a press conference in the next 2 to 3 weeks where we'll announce the site of that building. It's no secret, we're trying to find a site relatively close to the Performing Arts Center that's close enough for those nurse practitioner students and PA students and 3rd and 4th year medical students to be able to walk over to McLeod and down to Carolinas for their clinical work. So I think we're getting relatively close on that effort. Just a note, a word about the signs across campus. Folly and I, summer before last, had occasion to spend a week on the Duke campus, and frankly, I fell in love with the signs. So those of you that are Duke graduates, if those signs look familiar, it's not coincidental. I brought back a series of photographs and gave them to my friend Jay Kisper, who went to work providing us at wonderful cost a series of new signage across campus. Now, my apologies to the UNC grads, my apologies to the Gamecock grads. Just be glad we didn't spend a week on the Clemson campus. Let me briefly talk about Honors Village. We mentioned this briefly last year as we move along. The sense that we would develop a building that would accommodate the honors program, the McNair Center, and the international programs. We've moved that dialogue along substantially, where we will begin this fall looking at the likelihood of developing revenue bonds, securing the construction of that building, and an honors village, a 100-bed dormitory that will, 70s, a 100-bed apartment complex that will surround that and be available exclusively for students enrolling in our honors program. Now let me pause here a second and say, John Tuttle will talk to the faculty later this year about many of the things he's been working on with the honors program, and Keith Best has been working with him on. I don't want to take John's thunder away, but I think all of us are very, very intent on developing a world-class honors program here over the next 4 to 5 years, and a part of that honors program is going to require us to have special accommodations, good housing, and a unique classroom building, instructional laboratory for those honors students. So we're moving that ahead very, very well. And I hope when I come before you next August that I'll have the details as to how we can move that forward. Hyman, McNair, and Leatherman, refurbishment continues. We've tried to space out refurbishment, some this summer, some over Christmas, to disrupt the instructional activities as little as possible. Also the library renovation, the new HVAC. We will go into the General Assembly this coming year not only requesting the $500,000 for the PA program, but we'll request $1.5 million for refurbishment of Founders Hall in Cawthon. We did that 8 years ago. It's time to go back now and dress up Founders Hall in Cawthon as well. And I'm pretty optimistic that we'll be successful in getting that money this year. Finally, Terry and Brandon would want me to address this. We've been working on developing a sound studio as a very, very good complement to the Performing Arts Center downtown. Dr. Sampam Crackett donated to the University of building downtown, a very, very nice building. We're in the process now of working through the architectural specifications to try to get that sound studio completed, and hopefully that'll be done in the next 2 or 3 months. Terry assures me that we'll realize billions in revenues off that sound studio. So next year I'll give you a report on how much we've made off it. Terry? Let me talk very, very briefly about future priorities, if I might. And I'll sum this up quickly. 1, increase faculty and staff compensation. Something I think about every single day, and just so you guys know, at least every other month, I go on the Chronicle of Higher Education website and try to determine how much progress we're making in that process. You guys deserve compensation, good compensation. You deserve decent retirements. And one of these days, there are other people in this state that are going to recognize that just because we became state employees didn't mean that simply having the job was enough, that we should be rewarded with decent compensation, and the better our work, the better the compensation should be. So that's something we'll continue to focus on. Bill, was that you applauding? Bill, you give all your money away, okay? But for the, we will continue the renovation of university facilities. That again is a very, very strong priority with I think all of us. I know Jay Kisper at least twice a year comes in, and we have a very animated discussion about where we can get money to continue to upgrade our facilities. We'll continue to add instructional positions. I'm pleased at the new faculty we've hired this year. They're wonderful additions to this faculty, but we need to keep that up every single year, not just because we have the opportunity to enroll more students and maybe go different places, but as all of you know, it gives us a wonderful intergenerational dialogue inside departments. New faculty are terrific for institutions, and the older you get, the more important new faculty are each year. We'll continue to pursue service and outreach opportunities, and my friends, of recourse, even if it wasn't designed, we'll continue to raise as much money as we can every year. You know, the marvelous thing about that fundraising now is 15 years ago it was difficult. Now it's not nearly as difficult because a lot of people have seen what you've been able to accomplish with the money we've raised, and now it's much easier to build the case. Give us a little bit of money, we'll multiply it and make marvelous things happen with it. You know, over the past couple of weeks, a number of business and community leaders have complimented us on this great colleges to work for distinction. Most of them make reference to our pay and fringes in their compliments. And you know, I appreciate those comments, but they're mistaken. It's not about pay and fringes. Let me tell you what I think that recognition is truly about on this campus. It's about you. It's about the harmonious relationship and environment you've created over the past few years. It's about the way that you treat each other and the way that you treat all of our staff with dignity and civility and generosity. It's about taking joy in each other's triumphs, and it's about offering comfort in the face of each other's hardship and adversity. It's also about recognizing that there's something about this place that's different than what you would find in most colleges and universities. The culture is more congenial, it's more collegial, and yeah, it's more respectful. Now beyond that, I'm not sure I can give a definition. Frankly, I'm not even going to try. But I do understand its impact. Over the years, we have grown to be a community of scholars who happen to be very good friends. Each academic year, we draw upon that scholarship and we rely upon our friendship to provide our students an extraordinary education. An education that opens the door not only to knowledge, but to opportunity as well. We accomplish this as well as any university in the world. Don't take my word for it. Ask our alums. And that's why we're really a great college. Thank you.